and the stream should be on. I'm gonna have a quick check if the stream is live, and I see the stream is live. So after that, I'm gonna do a quick countdown. 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna start the podcast. So 3, 2, 1. Good evening, footies, and welcome to What the Foot Live, episode 13. Tonight, our legendary top 100 player and master of Run has left us, so we don't have Steve. Boo. But we have someone that speaks English much better and is very at home in FIFA career mode. Give a warm welcome to the Queen of Football, EA Game Changer, and our career mode expert, Football Queen.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us at this perfectly timed moment. Then, the networking myth, lover of Spanish strikers and soon to be elite player, it's Adam.
Hi, how's everyone doing? I do really love my Spanish strikers, don't I? You said that and I was like, do I? And I was like, yeah, I really do.
Yeah, you only talk about Bertie, so yeah.
Well, yeah, because he's God.
And my name is John, also known as Foot Coaching, and today we have a special show for you. Since Steve has family business going on tonight and Queenie was willing to join us after the news about career mode, we'll have career mode as our topic of the show. And don't forget, if you like this show, drop us a review, subscribe. We really appreciate all your support and continuous feedback. We start with our week in foot. We're gonna keep that a bit quicker this week. But then we'll jump straight into the just released career mode news. And if you don't play career mode, don't worry. Neither do I, so I'll be able to ask all the silly questions for you. Let's not wait any longer, and let's get this show started. Let's kick this show off with our dear guest, Queenie. Or Football Queen, I should call you actually, right?
That's perfect. Queenie or Football Queen both works perfectly fine. But yes, I'll just introduce myself really quickly for anyone who hasn't heard of me, which will probably be quite a few of you. So you can find me back on Twitter and on YouTube. I've been doing YouTube for quite a few years now, actually. Not as serious as others due to other commitments, but still uploading every now and then. Apart from that, I'm also an EA Game Changer, as has been mentioned already, which I'm very, very proud of, and also very glad and grateful that I've been given this opportunity to actually work with EA. So if anyone should have any questions which don't get asked or ultimately in this podcast, you can also just hit me back up on Twitter and I'll answer anything there for you as well. It's my week in foot already, or do you want to?
No, I think it's a perfect introduction. Everything. Your favorite mode in FIFA? It's not actually always mode. Foot, right?
No, it isn't actually. No, as you mentioned, career mode is the theme of the video or podcast today, and that is probably my favorite mode still, even though we've had a bit of a difficult time the past couple of years, to say the least. But fortunately, we've got a bit of change coming our way now. So, yeah.
Awesome. And what has your previous week in FIFA, the most commonly asked question in this show, been like? Or have you just been so busy with?
Quickly discussed pre-podcast. Yeah, I haven't actually had the opportunity to play too much this week, as I've been quite busy. But I'm actually sticking more to career mode again now, purely because I feel like Ultimate Team is kind of done at this point. Obviously, we've had quite the breakdown in the market, right? I managed to pick up Team of the Season, I think, for like 45k, which I was quite surprised by. But yeah, as I said, mainly focusing on career mode now, doing a bit of a simulation mode, which means I don't play any of the games, but just simulate all of them to make it more realistic in terms of managerial tasks and all of that. But yeah, mainly worked on you can't really say worked, played my Dortmund career mode.
I got so many questions already for you, but let's wait until we get into the talk.
Yeah, let's wait for that, yeah.
Your week in foot has been, well, steady. No rage quits I saw. No rage bursts. No weird like text messages. No broken phones for controllers. What's going on?
Well, I had a really calm, good week. I played quite a few drafts, won quite a few. That was fun because, as mentioned before, the market's completely dead at this point. And I think Steve said on the last podcast that any player that you really wanted, if they're one of the really special ones, you can't get them, and if they're one of the slightly below that, you can get them too easily. But I thought I might as well have a little bit of fun and draft. Won 4 of them. Then done weekend league. Saturday I went 14-1. Then went to a.
You can just repeat that for a second. You went
Sorry,
14-1.
Yeah, 14-1. And then got very, very drunk at a 50th birthday party. So next day I couldn't really do much more. Lost 3 in a row and thought I can't play.
You were on such a good run though.
I know, but I think it's probably my best run ever. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I might do. I mean, it is coming to the end now, but I might do.
Famous last try.
Yeah, might do. But to be honest, I'm excited about 20 now. I'm excited about like where that's going and stuff. So yeah. What about you, John?
Well, last Thursday I had 400k on my account. I had no clue what to do with. So I decided to buy 7,500 coin packs from it for all 400,000. Which made for some love and content, but also gave me 43 Team of the Season players. Which aren't worth much anymore, because I didn't get one of the big boys. I thought I hit the jackpot with getting the Nicolas Pepe card, which went down 900k since I got him. So I decided Friday, maybe I can throw, I got Vieira last week, maybe I can throw all those Team of the Season cards into our famous Ruud SBC. And maybe I can just push out one weekend league where I can actually use both of those cards, so Gullit and Vieira. And that's what I did. And I think talking about game changers, that's impressive though. If you have those two next to each other, if I have these two like a half year earlier or 3 months earlier, that would make for exciting weekend leagues to come. It's too late now, but it sure makes a difference. So that was fun. I played weekend league, got gold 1, screwed the pooch on Sunday a bit by trying to push all my games out in the last minute. But all by all, pretty good fun last weekend league, I think. Maybe I'll play some games this weekend, but might as well just relax and build up to FIFA 20, I guess. But yeah, Gullit is awesome, just so to speak. So gonna do some more icon SBCs for the rest of my coins, I guess, and see maybe if you can get him dupe. We had some fresh FUT 20 career mode news coming up. 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago it's been released. Whole lot of pitch notes, and like I've said before, I haven't played career mode in years. Last time I've played career mode myself, I did it to get my platinum trophy on my PlayStation. And I've been 3 years gone from my PlayStation side of FIFA, so it's been a while. Queeny, can I ask you as a career mode expert, and yeah, I'm going to call you that all night, can you quickly summarize why people should play career mode and what career mode actually is?
Yeah, well, let's start with what it actually is, I guess. I think you can split it up into 2 modes, which is basically the manager career mode and the player career mode. Focus on the manager career mode here because it's where the most of change has happened and which I think is the more popular mode. But just to mention the player career mode, you basically have the opportunity to either create your own player and start from the very beginning, or you can pick a player that already exists and then play with them in their team, or well, transfer away from that team and all of that stuff. So there's basically 2 options there. Going back to the manager career mode, basically what you do is, as it says, you're the manager of the club. You've got a load of different tasks to do, basically. So you manage the transfers, obviously the team management. Who do you want to keep? Who do you want to sell? Who do you want to loan out? Who do you want to get in? Youth development as well, where you can actually go ahead and scout other players that already exist. Or you can set up like a little youth squad by sending out scouts to different countries You then look up different new talent, which are basically game-generated players that you can then scout further or add to your youth team, basically. Apart from that, you also have the opportunity, obviously, to play the actual games. Also have the opportunity to simulate them if you don't want to actually play it, which is probably more. Our manager, obviously, it doesn't play for his players, but it's probably less fun because it's just like an animation and you don't actually get your hands on the game.
The player mode sounds a bit like Career Pro or something.
Yes, probably, yeah.
And the other one sounds like Football Manager.
Exactly. Just the only issue is that Football Manager, fortunately for it, is more in depth. Unfortunately for FIFA, we haven't got that depth in career mode just yet. But we'll see what happens in the future. But yeah, why should people play it? I think it's scene mode in the sense that when you play FUT, at least when I play FUT, get quite annoyed if it doesn't go my way, and I feel hard done by. So it's a bit more of a mode for yourself to play when you want a bit of off time of FUT, maybe. If you want to pick your favourite team, that's what I usually do, and see what you can do, because I feel like many people are very quick to criticise the manager in real life, and he can test your real knowledge of how it works on the pitch in the virtual world, basically. So
That's
it's
a good
just
one,
a bit
though.
of fun.
So put that on the box.
Maybe, well, we'll see.
Good.
But yeah, points to be mentioned.
So I think most players play the manager side, right?
Yes, well, I mean, I don't have the numbers, of course, but I'm pretty sure that most people go for the manager career mode.
Because if I look into the pitch notes, which for me is, like I said, all new, it looks like that's all manager based.
Yes, oh, definitely. I think for this time around, and it hasn't been much different for the past couple of years, really, there has been very little change regarding the player career mode. It's always been quite a basic mode, opinion at least. And it's got a lot of potential as well, just like pro clubs, for example, has a lot of potential as well, but they have been left to one side most of the time. Which is, well, I mean, this year around pro clubs has got a bit more attention, but play career mode has been left aside a bit.
Adam, have you been playing career mode ever?
Yeah, I've been an on and off player since FIFA 09. In fact, if I'm being complete, if I'm going back even further, every FIFA I've played career mode on. I've always got a kick out of it. Sometimes to just use it as a sandbox for the sublime and stupid, so editing the game to put 7'7" players in and things like that. Sometimes because I want to try and build up from nothing, and you pick like a team that's very, very down on their luck. Leeds, for instance, or Nottingham Forest, or even further down, and you try and bring them back to where they were. And
you're talking about Piemonte Calcio now, right?
No. I mean, like I suppose back in the day when they were relegated, yeah. I mean, it gave you a good chance to like bring back like a superpower team. But there's been some really fun moments for me on career mode. And me and Steve used to play it religiously together, and we started off in Division 1, and our team got so strong so quickly that Reading bought Drogba. And to this day, we still talk about Reading buying Drogba, even though they were in like the lower leagues. It was. I've always enjoyed career mode. It's a lot of fun.
So for the average Joe like me, how long does a career mode actually last? Is it a season or multiple seasons or infinite? I know I did 10-year runs on Football Manager, but that's all knowledge I have.
I have to admit, you've got me a bit off guard. It's definitely not infinite. There's an end to it. It's not only just a season or two. But I have to admit, I can't tell you what the year limit is. It's over 10 years, I think.
So it is something you can play during the whole year, or you start fresh somewhere along?
Yeah, of course, you can play that one career mode throughout quite a while. But then obviously you can create a new one, for example, with a different team. Or if you want to use the same team again, that's possible, of course, as well. I guess a way you can stretch it a bit more with the game experience is when you actually do play career mode, option to actually become a manager afterwards as well. But apart from that, there is a limit, but it's quite a long-lasting process, I would say.
It sounds
I
really cool, actually. No idea why I haven't played it.
have like a inbuilt limit, I think, is when my team is so good that I can be almost asleep and I'm beating opponents on like high levels, like world class or legendary and stuff. And when it's that case, when I realise that every single player is above 90 and I've got some like 90, like multiple 97s in the team or something, and I'm just winning every game very easily, I'm like, okay, time to do a new career mode.
Yeah, that's the only issue I think there is. Especially this year, I feel like the AI wasn't that difficult to beat,
No.
even if you had like Legendary on or something like that. And obviously, the more games you win, the more successful you're going to be, the more money you get, and then it gets quite boring quite easily. So that's where these new changes come in as well, hopefully to individualize the career modes and make them a bit more fun for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Also, I'm gonna run through the pitch notes, and I won't stop asking the silly questions, but feel free to interrupt me or share some info which you can. First thing I notice when I see the pitch notes, which are, by the way, available on Twitter on EA or just the EA website, the FIFA site, it starts with, we have listened to you, we have talked with everyone, and we appreciate your feedback, and this is what we did. That sounds promising compared to the more of transparency they've been going through this year. And I think Queenie, as a game changer, you're at least a big part of that, in my opinion. All promising. So career mode feedback from the community is a big part of all these changes. My question is, if I see that sentence, how can people give their feedback to different modes? Something I've been asked as well. Is that by Queenie, by just sending you a message, or at a Cory or a FIFA or FIFA forums? How do they? Can you tell anything about how they receive that feedback?
I think there are like multiple ways of giving your feedback or passing it on. Obviously, first and foremost, as I'm on here now, if you have got any feedback throughout, then you can always send it to me and I'll pass it on. Obviously, that is one of the big things I can do as a game changer, which is very good. But apart from that, if you message Cory, or Zara as well, who's another person who's very active on Twitter, then those two least have the opportunity to filter through all of the messages they get and then pass it on to the relevant person within the organization, obviously. Then there's this Reddit, which I personally don't use a lot, I have to say, but there are a lot of people who give feedback on there, and that does get looked at very much in depth, I think. There's a couple of people who are only on Reddit who are actually also game changers, so you can see how important that platform is. And then more generally, I mean, obviously, if you get other content creators to talk about what you think needs change, whether that be on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, on, I don't know, Instagram, whatever platform it may be, then most of the time that gets passed on or is noticeable, just because probably a lot of people will have the same kind of sentiment. So that EA will then look at that as well. I think those are probably the main ways. But all in all, I think, especially this year, has shown that you don't have to be someone who's really important for them to actually see you and interact and reply to your messages.
I think that's the biggest takeaway you can give people from this. Also, if you do, it's sort of a shame I should say this, but be respectful while providing your feedback. All right, thanks, Fred. I'm going to run through the pitch notes, the details. Just help me out here, okay? First thing they said that's mentioned is we got new press conference and player conversations. That means pre-match press conferences, which really look cool, by the way. There's a short clip where your custom-made manager is actually going to have a press conference at Real Madrid, and that there are several storylines which will roll out as based on your press conference, which means a bit of an RPG element in this game. Is that new? Completely new?
Massively.
Yeah, it is new. Yeah, for sure. I think actually it's in Football Manager. You don't have these cutscenes either, but you have these press conferences post-match and pre-match conferences. Whereas in FIFA, up until this point, you really only had the pre-match press conferences, and they were always the same. Basically, you could praise or motivate or unnerve someone, but it was genuinely just pressing 2 buttons, and there was no animation or anything. So this is really big, really interesting, and I think especially because it is still individualized and customized by your personal progress. Because if this would always be the same cutscene, it would be the same issue we've had with transfer negotiations, which obviously also have always the same pattern they follow, which then gets quite boring relatively quickly. So it's good to see that they've actually individualized this and made it a bit more, well, difficult for themselves, obviously, because it needs more programming, I suspect, but more interesting for the player.
Yeah, the key sentence in that, which goes in more depth in that, is they say we can create an enormous variations of storylines that are deeply rooted in the player's experiences and your way of playing. That means that the experience of each match will be treated differently by all the journalists and will always feel authentic and dynamic, depending highly on the outcome, goal scored, opponent, time of season, and stage of competition, and even more. It sounds promising, right? Like really dynamic, like an like a good RPG. This is something which makes replay as well, I think, very nice to consider. Then EA goes on about the amount of logic behind the stories. You can also have player conversations. Is there anything in that which you want to highlight?
I think once again, it's just about the interaction and it not always being the same thing. As long as that, I think this is a massive new feature once again, because at the moment, if you play and, for example, a person is unhappy or wants to leave, first of all, there's no way you can really react in the sense of messaging that player. It's just, for example, we've got Sergio Ramos, as they've got here, and he says, I want to leave the club. That's what happens a lot, actually. Although he's obviously playing at a Spanish side, it doesn't make any sense, but often enough they just say, I'm homesick, and then they move within the league as well, which is really frustrating. But yeah, so you don't really have the opportunity to talk to the player, and now you do, which I think is going to be very fun. Again, it's a bit more interactive, and I think that was what people wanted. They wanted to have more interaction with the game and not just picking like one player saying, I want you to stay, and then the player says after a couple of seasons, I want to leave, and you can't really do anything about it.
The last part that says that completes this feature is the new player morale system. And it said morale will be influenced by a multitude of different factors. You can have one-on-one conversation which impact players' morale, and having a high morale will be highly desired as a player's morale will influence their attributes in upcoming matches. So that's what Football Manager does as well. You can praise your team, but you can also praise separate players or talk to separate players. And that goes into the other systems for, making player conversations, players conferences more important and more dynamic. It sounds really promising. The only thing but I'm a real newbie in this, is how much difference there will be in that in those conversations, not just a button press. So I think, as example, Adam plays the Formula 1 games as well, which has a similar system, but after each race, you give the same responses because that's best for your team, and doesn't really matter what you actually think, and it's always the same.
I think in a game like this, because I play NBA 2K a hell of a lot, and they've had a very well fleshed out My GM mode, which would be the comparison to career. And the ability to be able to affect players' morale is a huge thing because of the fact that sometimes you are trying to get rid of someone, like purposefully. So to be able to crush them a bit makes that situation easier, and this is a really good thing. I mean, it allows you to, yeah. It's I like this so far.
Then something I really like is the manager customization. That means you can actually, instead of making an avatar, you can actually change your whole manager, how it looks and stuff. See, you can play with a female character this year. That's new, I think. Queenie, how often do you actually see your manager in game, in the current game?
Well, that's the point. You don't really see him too often, do you? Sometimes pitch side, obviously, if you're playing a game and there might be a cutscene where you see him being very happy or very angry. And then obviously you see him in the cutscenes when you're trying to purchase someone. So throughout the transfer negotiation system, when there are these cutscenes and you don't just skip them all, you would see him interacting with the opponent manager. But apart from that, there's not really much interaction with the characters. So I'm guessing due to customization and obviously the press conferences and so on, you will see him more. And that's why it obviously becomes more important to actually have an avatar that you can create yourself. So I guess that was probably one of the main motivations behind this. But I think it's a really good change. It's nice to actually have something. Again, it's more individualized. I think that's the main point. Ones in the current game and previous games, and they'd actually changed something a couple of years back already. You have like 6 or 7 different heads basically you can change.
Yeah.
Then you've got like a normal body, and then you can, I think, suit and tie, and then a real like fully dressed suit and whatever, and then a tracking suit or something like that. So there's really not much to be able to for you to customize. So I think this is a huge step.
Awesome. Do you think we can have like a smoking sari on the bench?
I'm not sure about the smoking part, but I'm sure you can create someone who's very similar looking to him.
But that's a good addition. I think I can, for someone who really likes playing role-playing games next to FIFA, I could be stuck in the character creator for a long time by the looks of it. So maybe it's not smart for me to start this game. New addition in new life screenshots. In FIFA, there will be gameplay screenshots showing key moments of any given match, and the news information or news pages will also show these live content. That means more personalization and more reflective of what you actually did. I have no idea how often you see stuff like that, but it sounds like a smart addition and really easy to implement. Is it something you were looking forward to, Queenie?
Yes. Well, I mean, I think the changes that are now coming, apart from one, are probably major things we've just talked about. But news have always been quite similar in every single mode, and I think it's hugely linked to transfers usually being very similar as well. They've actually changed that a bit over the years, but for example, a couple of years back, there were always like the 5 same transfers happening in the first few weeks of the game. So it was very repetitive. Again, as you just said, I think the main theme that is running through all of these changes is really personalization, individualization, you being able to actually create a unique career mode and not doing something another person is doing by picking the same team, for example. So I think it's a good addition. Again, something, but personally, I don't really focus on news, for example, as much as other people might do. I concentrate more on actually like playing the game and then maybe changing my lineup and buying players and all of that. So it's not that huge for me personally, but I see where they're coming from, and I think it's a good addition nonetheless.
Awesome. Adam, anything on the screenshot part?
Yeah, it's a nice little touch to it, because one of the most annoying things for me in career mode is when you get them screenshots of like, it says like, oh, this player is one to watch, and it's just some generic looking background, and he's just like in his kit and he's like halfway through like a freeze frame, and it's just, it looks so samey and boring. Like I'm going to try to avoid saying NBA 2K 100 times, but one of the great things about that game is that they have like a fake Twitter feed that they've put on the game, and you get like very varied sort of things, especially when up and coming players like about to come and they're like, oh, this player's going to be crap for this team, da 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 da, and like having it feel more in game and stuff is always a good thing.
I think I would agree with that as well, because Football Manager's got like a social feed as well, I think. And although that is, I think, a bit more generic in the sense that when certain things happen, like for example, you're interested in a player, often enough the messages that you see are quite similar. But it's still a nice touch just to have that in the background or be able to scroll through that, and just it feels more real, because obviously in our digital age, everyone talks about everything on the internet. So game, it adds a bit more realism, I think, even.
The Journey had that as well, right? I mean, I only played Journey season 1, but I like the Twitter feeds coming up, mentioning you, giving you cheers or boos.
And I think that was a really good part. And to be honest with you, with some of these things, for example, the interaction part, very much inspired by part of the journey. I don't know anything about the correlation, or if there's any correlation between the modes at all. But I feel like that might have been a bit of a test phase of testing certain features, maybe then looking to implement those in other modes. But that's just a personal theory. That's got nothing to do with actual reality. I just feel like some of those things have been taken out and added to other modes.
It could be, because the next part is the league user interface themes that were going on. I think that was part of the journey as well, that you see the Premier League all throughout the mode. And I like this feature. So what it does is you got 5 central UI treatments that reflect the authentic branding of Premier League, Bundesliga, Ligue 1, Ligue Santander, and the MLS. So you will get the score sheets, the colors, the backgrounds in all of those league teams, which is a nice addition. It feels more authentic, and I think that's something the Journey did very well. There's a lot of things I don't think it did well, but the feeling that you were actually part of the league, it really nailed it, in my opinion. But is that a big feature, or there's a Champions League feature as well, I see? Is that something matters much? Just a nice details.
Well, I mean, I don't know what Adam says about this. I think personally it's again a nice touch. It's nice to have different designs, and especially, as you said, it gives you more of a feel of actually playing or managing a team in that respective league. Although, again, it's something that I think will last for the first couple of weeks, or maybe your first couple of career modes, and afterwards it's just going to be there. It's more of one of these features.
100% agree. It's one of them things I feel that it's like in this year's career mode, when you went into a Champions League game, like the whole UI changed in the background. And whilst that sounds cool, and it was for about a week, the next time I played career mode, I was like, oh. And also because of the fact that then it threw me off, because of the fact that I couldn't just scroll and quickly check on my league. And if I'd if I'd done like a chunk sim where you just jump forward like a month, I suddenly wouldn't know where I am in the league, and I was like, oh, why have I skipped to a Champions League game? And yeah, it's a nice feature, don't get me wrong, but it's not game breaking.
The next one might be really important, though. That's dynamic player potential. And I can try to explain it, but Queenie, can you explain it in proper career mode language?
I'll give it a try. I think the most important thing to think about here is what we had before this new edition for FIFA 20, because the past few years, what happened basically is that young players, if they had like a good potential, they would usually just increase if you trained them, for example, played them in a match, or even just by having them in your club. Whilst older players usually deteriorated really quickly, even if they were doing well. So, for example, even in this year, when I was playing with Dortmund, I got Karim Benzema in my first season. He was my best player by far, scored a load of goals, still went down by 2 rating points. Makes no sense. So that's been something that people have criticised throughout the past couple of years, and I've always been one of the people who've been quite vocal about that as well. And that's why this is such a huge change, because now, as you can see, as it's mentioned in the pitch notes, if someone has a high potential, is quite young, and they've got a breakout season, then they will potentially have a even better potential. Whilst people who are a bit older but still have a really good run of performances and play very well, their potential will still be higher, or at least they won't decrease in the way they have in the past few FIFAs. So it's more based on how you actually play and how they perform throughout the year.
In the basic, much more realistic and much more deserving of the rating they will get, right?
Exactly.
It's been a massive frustration for me personally, because what happens is you play FIFA and in real life you have like a breakout player. So a few years ago, obviously everybody remembers Mbappe having a breakout, and then his potential is high, but not really high, like it's 82 or something. And so you're not going to sign him, even though you're excited about the fact that this young kid has just broken through in real football. So you're like, I'm going to sign him on my next thing. I'm going to sign him at some lowly team, and we're going to get all the way to the Champions League final. And then you get him, and you realise that you'll have to get rid of him in season 3, and that's not right. I want it should be more realistic, because of the fact that there are players with huge potential that never really amount to much. And it's because of the fact that they haven't performed, or because of external factors. Ravel Morrison in real life probably had the most potential that any English football player has ever had. But unless you're a diehard West Ham fan or you watch the Mexican League, you will have no idea who I just mentioned. But the fact of the matter is that he started out with great potential but never saw it. Whereas other players that have really had to work hard and we didn't think were going to have, that greater careers, ended up having the most fantastic careers. I mean, we all knew Ronaldo was going to be great. Nobody knew that Cristiano was going to be this great. Watching him when he first comes to the Premier League, there was no way that anybody thought that.
Before get people angry, no worries. Before we get people angry, say something cool about Messi as well.
He was always going to be very, very good. He's a different, like, I don't want to like hark on this too much, but he is nature. He is
player.
Yeah.
Just want to get it out there, because we don't want to mention either one so low. So,
but yes, I mean, just to latch on to that again, as you said, there have been so many people in real life who, through their performances, really achieved great. I mean, just looking at, like, I remember Dele Alli. I know he was very young then still, but he was seeing from his 56 rated card to him being extremely good now, or even Vardy when he was in the lower leagues and no one really thought about him, and he had his breakout seasons and then performed really well for Leicester during their title winning season and all of that. I think that's just such a huge point, that people will, even if all the other things fail, still be remembered that this was a great addition in this FIFA, because it genuinely has been such big an issue in the past. Looking forward to it, and I hope it actually functions the way it is supposed to function, based on what they've told us in these pitch notes.
Yeah, I've got everything crossed for it. I can't wait to have next year's version of Jadon Sancho or Ousmane Dembele, because those two players, especially with their weird attributes of having either 5-star skills or weak foot, it makes it so exciting to play with them, because they've already got some of the physical attributes that at the beginning of the career mode, which is fair. They're not unbelievable football players, but you want to play them and you want to build them up, and then you can't, and it's just or they just grow on their own, whereas they should be growing based on what you do to them, not just, oh, I did 100 million training sessions.
You'll even be able to boost up Ravel Morrison again now. I think he's joined Sheffield United, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
You'll tease him in the Premier League. We'll see how he does then in career mode as well.
You just scored some bonus points with that, Queeny.
More with Steve. When Steve hears that, he'll do like a backflip. He has a love affair with Ravel Morrison. I can't blame him. He did score one of the greatest ever Premier League goals. It's just nobody ever remembers it.
Literally had a bit of a rough time afterwards. Yeah.
I didn't know that
Yeah.
even. I didn't know that either. But now every week, Steve and Adam remind me. So, but that's. I think that's the biggest addition, the biggest change, right? And the most.
Well, I
painful
mean,
one.
really played career mode throughout the years will think that is the biggest change, the most important one at least.
For the rest, I think there's some general improvement additions, and I could try sum it up, unless that I forget something. But Queenie, you posted a brilliant summary on your Twitter, so there will be time for you at the end of the show to mention your Twitter again. But I'm just gonna use your summary to get the little ones out of the way, so to speak. But feel free to correct me or add things to it. But the smaller adjustments are better fixture arrangements. That's probably needed. No idea. Redesign.
Yeah, it is actually needed. That I put that down as one of the small adjustments because it is, and it is mentioned as a small adjustment as well. But everyone will know if you've got like a team who's in all of the different competitions, or even if you're just in a league that just has a lot of games, often enough fixtures will be very close to one another. I think some people actually had 2 fixtures on one day. I've never had that personally, but that is stupid, obviously, and people have been very vocal about that as well. So that is actually a bigger thing for some, but it's a smaller adjustment because I think it was probably quite easy to resolve.
So it's a small adjustment, but actually a pretty nice one to have on board.
Small adjustment, big impact, yeah.
The redesigned team management, which I think might be similar to what we get in FUT. That's different as well now.
I think it's just basically easier to go ahead and compare players, which was quite difficult beforehand because, well, I say quite difficult. Obviously, it's still easy enough, but now you've got the people next to each other, as you can see on that picture they've posted as well, which is obviously helpful if you want to see how well one is.
Yeah, I guess you don't have websites to compare players during the season like we do in FUT. New negotiation settings. Want to go into detail for that one? Or?
I don't think we really need to go into too much detail. Basically, this is very much connected to transfer negotiations. Usually, you're always in that one room, his office, and now they've added a couple of new locations to mix it up a bit.
Which is fine, I guess. I mean, Football Manager sees a sheet, and that's also fine. So,
I'm going to miss having Peter Cech
with the helmet.
Petr Cech, sorry, with the helmet on doing the negotiations. That was my favourite thing of career mode this year. It made me genuinely laugh.
They changed it though.
Yeah.
And that's all I know about career mode. So, save slot adjustment. I don't know. Is that the I doesn't ring a bell.
That was that again, probably small adjustment, big impact, just like the fixture arrangements. They had increased the number of save slots you were able to have. So a lot of people actually start a lot of different career modes. So pressed to overwrite another career mode in favor of a new one. Less slots in this year's game, and they've basically renewed that in the sense of adding some more again, as it was in the previous FIFAs, basically.
All right, sounds good. And the last one you've mentioned is the youth development tweaks.
Again, that's tweaks really is the right word, I think, for this one, because they've just added or changed a couple of smaller things. So, for example, often enough, if you were scouting in, I don't know which point, let's say Brazil, this is quite difficult to say in a way that people don't feel disrespected, I feel like. To put it very respectfully, they do not look like people from Brazil, or what you would expect people to look like from Brazil, for example. I think there were even more drastic examples with other regions. But I guess, to put it drastically, for example, in the Netherlands, you wouldn't only expect to get Asian-looking players, for example. And that is what happened. So they've basically that it fits the region more, the way the player looks, if that makes sense.
Well, sounds promising though. I mean, it could be something that would get me out of it, to be honest.
So yeah, to be honest with you, a lot of people obviously, for obvious reasons, were annoyed about that, and they've just said, yeah, distribution of ethnicity, which is what I just described in more words, basically. And apart from that, they've also added composure. Obviously, was one of the biggest parts or stats in FIFA, and they've increased that initial stat for people you've got from a youth academy. Quite a low stat, and obviously it doesn't always make sense for someone to have 20 composure just because he's a young player.
All right. Sounds like the biggest change in years. There's something mentioned in the notes which actually makes me curious, and that's the usage of the fourth substitute in extra time for all competition that support this new law of the game. I hope they bring it into FUT as well. Didn't mention that.
I've got no idea, to be honest with you.
I doubt they will. I think that kind of feature needs to be tested in career mode first, and I don't want them to bring that into FUT, to be honest, because of the fact that it's not a rare rule, but it's only in certain competitions, so it should only be in those certain competitions. Maybe there should be a week of it in FUT or something like that. It would change the game up and stuff, but yeah.
The sirens are at Adam's end, by the way.
Yeah,
don't stop
sorry.
The car. No worries. Just have to make sure everyone in the car notice and don't stop their car at the highway. Listen to this spot. I think all of career mode looks fun. It actually makes me wonder if I read all these changes and talk to you, Queenie. You are very enthusiastic about it and makes me wonder myself why I didn't touch it this year at all. So this
is the best time to try, to be honest with you, with all of these changes coming in.
Yeah, with the new version, you mean? So start with FUT 20, right?
There's something that I'm really, really excited about as well. Touching on the initial composure attribute, being boosted. My problem with some of the youth players was that let's say you wanted to get a winger, and let's be honest, you want a winger to be pacey. And if you got a 14, 15-year-old in your ranks and you're trying to wait and build them up and all of that stuff, what would happen is they would have 85 pace and, 85, overall, and you'd be like, oh, okay, that's fine because I can build them up, but you can't. So them having better, because some kids generally come into the league, when you get them into the point where they can play in the league, they're pretty much as quick as they're going to be. They don't get significantly quicker, but they also don't really get slower as such. And it's horrible because you never really get very fast players in the youth mode, at least from what I've gathered. And other players do somehow boost theirs that are not in the youth. But I'm just looking forward to it feeling more like they're actually a young person that's growing into their body, sort of thing, because that's how it should be.
I think that's part of what they mentioned as well regarding player growth in the different areas. So they want to allow for more physical growth by hopefully more attention to that aspect of a player's growth. So I think that issue hopefully should not come up in next year's FIFA. Or, well, no, I say this year's FIFA, but the next edition.
Yeah.
Next month's FIFA.
Exactly. True.
Is there something, Queenie, which you are missing, which you would really like to see changed, but is not in these notes? Just being a bit of criticism at the end.
All around, youth football is quite a big thing in real life, obviously. I would like it to have a more prominent role in FIFA as well, because we've got this youth academy, but what you basically do is you send out a scout, as I said at the beginning. That scout looks around every single month, you get a report, and then you can decide who you want to take or who you want to release and all of that. And it was a fun addition when it was added years ago. But I would really like to have the option of going more in depth in that part, and maybe even having the option of having a youth squad, so a youth team really, where you can have like a second team where you can play with them, or let another part of the coaching staff do the playing or something like that, as you can with Football Manager. That again would add a bit more realism, and it's just more in-depth playing. Really fun. Apart from that, to be honest with you, I'm always just happy about any single change I can see that gets introduced to career mode, purely because, as I said, we've been starved in that sense. So I think apart from that, they've done a really good job this year round.
Yeah, and by someone who doesn't play the mode until next month, maybe then, that certainly looks the case. And it makes me a bit anxious to actually try it as well. I like the fact that you're mentioning the youth academy and more youth playing, because that's something in Football Manager which I usually spend lots of time in, getting the new talent recruited by just getting the right players, the right places, and actually playing with the youth squad. So maybe for the next year, but so far it looks all promising. Adam, do you have any closing thoughts on career mode and the changes you are looking at?
I promised I wouldn't say it too much, but I believe that they've taken a good look at some other sports games and how they do their management modes. They've taken some really good features from them, which I'm really, really happy with. But there's more to add. But this is a great start. There's definitely more to add. I'm only going to mention it once more, I promise. But with NBA 2K, for instance, the level of detail in scouting for new players, or for scouting for a player that's going to be coming into the draft, which is basically how youth players come into that league, is stellar. It's a year-round task. Then when you actually get close to it, you invite them to play with your team. You can chat to them, and just like the sense of like excitement and anticipation around what you're going to do in that moment, if you've got a young building up team, is fantastic. And I want more of stuff like that in FUT, and especially because of the fact that the MLS does work like that. The MLS does have drafts and stuff. It doesn't really work in the same way as the rest of the footballing world. So maybe it's something they could look at. They could maybe make the MLS a bit bigger of a thing, because that could be a really exciting mode.
Well, since they have the MLS as a team user interface as well, that might actually start to building up towards that. So I think it's a fun part. And concerning the topic of looking at other games to get inspiration of, I think if the good things get picked out of other games, that's perfectly fine. And if this shows also that the community has a voice which is also heard, and it doesn't have to be perfect yet, but it's important that we know that we are being heard, no matter which mode you provide feedback on. And they are implementing changes and are listening to us. Queenie, do you have any closing thoughts on the career mode?
I think just what I said basically. It's a good step into the right direction. A first step after many years of us not having any change. So, as I said, I can't say any more than actually being happy, as long as this individualized and personalized part does follow through, because otherwise, at the very beginning, I can see this falling a bit flat after a couple of weeks, because if we've got press conferences and player talkings, they're always the same. Start to just skip. And then the only big feature that remains, or the only two big features that remain, are probably customization and player potential being dynamic now.
We'll gladly have you on the podcast a couple of weeks in, or do a special career mode update episode if you want.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's we got that date settled, right? This week's award, though, we're gonna close up with the reward, and in the show soon. So the reward actually goes to Adam for terrible predictions, because he says Tex would win the World Championship.
No, I didn't. I said he wouldn't.
I know. I'm just kidding, buddy. No, in all fairness, just big congratulations to Mo Auba for winning the World Championship title. couldn't be happier for a very optimistic, very happy person in this community, a player for a long while now, fun dude, always optimistic, always fun to see, always fun to see his play style, very sportive, sportsmanship like, and just a big big congratulations for him, and also for everyone that participated in it. You're top 32 in the world. Be proud on what you've accomplished this year, and don't let anyone else tell you that. Just be happy with that result and go again next year. Next week we'll be reviewing FUT 19, so we go into the best players we've used. Icons aren't allowed for that review session, so Steve will be back, and we'll be throwing in our top non-icon players. If you have any players you want to nominate yourself, just tweet at us and we'll read those into the show as well. So let's close up this show by asking Queenie where people can find you.
As I mentioned, people can find me back on Twitter and on YouTube. Twitter, it's at Football Queeny, and YouTube is just Football Queen without the Y.
And check out the Football Queeny Twitter, especially with the great summary. Just perfect.
Thank you very much.
Adam, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at FootFrankenstein. You can also message the pod directly at WTF WT Foot podcast. I'm so bad at this every week. But yeah, you can find us on there. You can also just by all means message me or whatever if you've got any networking issues with FIFA or anything like that. And yeah.
Awesome. So we're gonna rename the Twitter handle. It's WT Foot Podcast for everyone who wants to tweet at us. Thank you all for listening. Queenie, thank you for joining us this week. Timing couldn't be better, and it was lovely to have you on. If you have any questions about the topic next week, just send them in. You can find me at footcoaching on Twitter. Footcoaching.com is my website, or mixer.com/footcoaching, youtube.com/footcoaching. Everything with footcoaching, you'll end up with me. Also check out my new podcast, which I do with my dear friend Ingvi every Friday, where we'll be reviewing players that has been released on FUT that week, and who knows, maybe career mode next year. So that's this for this week. So Adam,
it's goodbye from me.
Bye from me.
And goodbye from me, and see you next week.